Hello there, S.T.E.A.M team! My name is Kristen and I'm a programming assistant at the Penticton Public Library. S.T.E.A.M Team Tuesdays is all about exploring the world around us with exciting experiments and awesome activities, all from the comfort of our own homes and using many common household items. Today is the final video in the Hibernation, Adaptation, and Winter Weather series. We have today another fun, cold weather themed experiment. We will be talking about ice, how it forms, where it can be found, and what types of weather it can create. We'll also be learning about carbonic acid, what it is and how it forms, and then setting off a fizzy chemical reaction using ice as the basis. First, you may know that ice is simply water that has been frozen. For example, here I have this frozen sponge, which can be used as an ice pack, and all it is a sponge that's been soaked in water, as sponges are really good for picking up water, and then left in the freezer overnight, and it's completely frozen. So whether we're talking about ice cubes in your freezer, an icicle hanging outside your window, a local ice skating rink, icebergs in the Arctic Ocean, or glaciers way up high in the mountains. Whatever type of ice that we might be talking about, it all forms in pretty much the same way, which is with a change in state. Water is in a liquid state, such as how we typically drink it, and ice is in a solid state. So it's water that has been frozen and solidified by being exposed to temperatures below freezing or less than 0 degrees Celsius. Snowflakes, hail, and freezing rain are all examples of weather conditions made from ice. Now we'll get back to that weather topic a little bit later after our experiment. But for now, another important thing to understand is what is carbonic acid? Carbonic acid is an unstable chemical, meaning that it falls apart, resulting in a fizz as it releases carbon dioxide, which is a gas, and water, a liquid. Carbonic acid can easily be created by combining vinegar and baking soda. Specifically, the scientific term for baking soda, as we know it, is sodium bicarbonate. And when sodium bicarbonate combines with the acid present in the vinegar, that is when carbonic acid results. Have you ever seen any other kind of baking soda and vinegar experiments, such as an exploding volcano for a science experiment? Well, this is basically the same idea. However, the fact that we are using ice with this experiment means that the coldness is going to slow down that chemical reaction so that it actually fizzes for longer. Now, let's move on to what we will need for this activity. For this activity, you will first need a plastic container, bin, or bowl of some kind to put the ice in. You could also have a second container or bowl for pouring the vinegar into. Then you will need enough ice to fill your bin, or at least to fill the bottom of it, depending what size of container that you have chosen. You will need 1 to 2 boxes of baking soda, 1 bottle of white vinegar. You will need some dish soap. I'm using this blue dish soap to give it a nice blue tint, but if you have a different color of dish soap, you could also optionally add some blue food coloring or whichever color of food coloring that you prefer. Then you will also want either a pipette or some kind of eyedropper. And you may optionally also want a timer to see how long your reaction lasts. So let's get on to the steps. Step 1. First, since we are being researchers or scientists in this experiment, let's start out by seeing how baking soda and vinegar react to each other on their own, so without any ice or dish soap added. You can try this in a different container than the one we're going to be using for the ice, or you can try this reaction right in your sink. And did you know this can actually be an awesome way to help keep your drains clean? I am first opening a box of baking soda and then sprinkling some of it right into the sink near the drain. Then you want to simply pour a splash of vinegar on top of that, and immediately you should see that the mixture starts to fizz. As it goes down the drain, you may even be able to hear it working its bubbly, fizzy magic down there. And this is a more natural alternative to using a drain cleaner. Step 2. Now let's set up to try the slowed down version of this carbonic acid reaction. Just as in our experiment from last week, if you don't already have some ice cubes ready to go, be sure to freeze as much as you think you will need the night before you want to try this experiment. Take the container, bin, or bowl that you will be using and fill it up with ice so at least the bottom is covered, but you probably want a couple layers of ice in here. Now take your baking soda and shake a layer of baking soda on top of the ice so that it covers it thoroughly. And you'll want a good amount of baking soda on here too, because the more baking soda that we have, the more that the vinegar will be able to react with it and create a better chemical reaction. Then open up your bottle of dish soap and squeeze or drizzle some on there as well. The point of the dish soap here is it will also help to prolong our chemical reaction by not allowing the carbon dioxide to escape or dissipate as quickly. Then optionally, you could add a few dots of blue food coloring or any color of your choosing. I also added a few drops of red food coloring in an attempt to make purple. Step 3. Feel free to experiment with mixing some different colors as well if you'd like to. Take another container or a bowl and pour some vinegar into it, maybe about a cup of vinegar. Now you're going to take your pipette or dropper of some kind, dip your dropper into the vinegar, and practice just squeezing the top to suck up some of the vinegar. So we are ready to begin the experiment. And step 4, a little bit at a time, keep sucking up some vinegar into your dropper and then take it and squeeze it on top of the bin of ice, baking soda, and dish soap. This may take a little while, but you'll want to keep going and keep at it until it really starts to fizz and foam. Using the dropper is a really cool way to see the reaction playing out slowly and on a smaller scale. Keep some vinegar and baking soda on hand in case you would like to add more. I ended up adding extra baking soda to help create a better reaction. What I ended up doing after a little while then was taking the rest of my bowl of vinegar, or you can just take some extra vinegar straight from the bottle and pour it right on top of that baking soda so that it creates a better fizz, more like what we had created in the sink earlier. Once I did this, you can see that it really started to fizz and foam up, and the mixture was almost spilling out over the top of the container. So this is the part 2 where if you would like to, you could use a timer to time and see how long the reaction continues taking place. If you look really closely here, you can actually see these big bubbles that formed once I poured a lot of the vinegar on top. And that is the carbon dioxide gas releasing. As we said, the carbonic acid is unstable, so it is falling apart, releasing carbon dioxide gas and water. On top of the ice, I did find for myself that the reaction lasted much longer than it did when trying it in the sink or in a container, as it would just kind of fizz up and then be done. But on top of the ice, it was probably at least a minute or so, maybe even a couple minutes, that it was nice and foamed up. And then I could tell once it was starting to go down again, as I could see all of the ice peeking through, and the reaction was pretty much over. So thank you for being a part of this experiment to try, called Fizzing Snowballs. So do you remember in the second video in this series called Making Magic Snow? And if you haven't seen it yet, you can find it by navigating to the library's Facebook page under videos and then going to the STEAM Team Tuesdays playlist, and it will be on there. What we did was make some sparkly snow dough using only baking soda and water. And of course, as we learned today, the baking soda will react with the acid in vinegar to create carbonic acid. So we can do the same kind of thing with this snow dough as we've done with just the plain baking soda on top of the ice. So if you would like to try this out, go back and watch that video, make some of the magic snow or snow dough, form it into snowballs, and you can place those snowballs in a container as we did today with the ice, and do the same thing, get a dropper of some kind and start to drip some vinegar over top of it with the dropper until you get that fizzing chemical reaction. You can make this even more fun and more customized if you'd like by adding different kinds of sparkles into there, by adding different colors of food coloring. You could make them multicolored snowballs or purple or blue. Okay, let's move on to a real world connection. At the beginning of this video, we mentioned a few types of weather that can be created by ice. But what is the difference between snow, hail, and freezing rain? How exactly do they happen and how do they form? Snow, as we also discussed previously in the Making Magic Snow video, is formed in the clouds when it's cold enough for tiny ice crystals to stick together and then fall to the ground as snow. Hail is formed in a similar way, but we typically see it during storms when it is quite windy. And this is because ice crystals or snowflakes begin to fall, but then they are blown back up into the clouds repeatedly, causing them to have layers of water frozen into ice built on top of one another. This is why hail can become the size of a golf ball, as there are many layers of water that freeze on top of each other depending how many times it has traveled back upwards. Finally, both freezing rain and what is called sleet are somewhere in between rain and snow. Freezing rain will begin to fall as snowflakes, and then somewhere along the line the air gets warmer. It melts into liquid water or raindrops, but then when it hits the ground again, the ground is freezing. So right upon contact with the ground, that freezing rain turns into ice. Sleet is very, very similar to this. It also starts as snowflakes coming down from the clouds, but then it just hits a patch of warmer air where it melts into raindrops. But then as it continues to fall, before hitting the ground, the air is colder, so it freezes again in that colder air before hitting the ground. I actually found this very interesting, as we've all probably experienced some hail or some sleet falling down from the clouds at times, and I honestly didn't know of the differences how it was formed. So I hope that you were able to learn something, because I know that I did. So today we learned about both the formation of ice as well as carbonic acid, and then watch the results of our very own chemical reaction made using some common kitchen ingredients. I hope you've had an enjoyable time over these last 4 weeks of hibernation, adaptation, and winter weather activities. That's a wrap on STEAM Team Tuesdays for now, but I will see you again soon. Take care, STEAM Team!